Hey everyone, I'm Norn Queen Alexis and welcome back to the channel. Today we are taking a look at The Awakening, a Warhammer 40k fan project. This is in no relation to Games Workshop. This is an independent who wanted to do this on their own, and I hate the fact that people now need to broaden and state that at the beginning because of GW's recent activities. But regardless, let's take a look at this animation. I have not seen it yet, so we're going to watch it, then we're going to break down, do some reactions to it, you know, the typical. Puts a copyright there, even though none of this actually matters to Games Workshop. Ooh. Fancy. Moving text. Ooh, Dark Angels. Work in project. Okay. The guy had a tube in his dick.
We are here, Tech Priest.
I like the glow around the eyes.
Captain Ramniel, my apologies. Are they truly awakening?
Hey, it's Voldemort. He's actually one of the good lore
The
YouTubers.
space around us is enormous. My senses cannot reach its end. It is confusing.
The energy spikes that have been disrupting our networks. Their typical frequencies pulsing through this world's crest. It is most assuredly an awakening.
The technology is ancient and yet incredible.
I suggest a small strike team composed of your very best.
They almost look like
For such a
Ultramarines.
task. Strike team to Vanguard. We move out. This is a trap.
So it's
This
Necrons,
is a fight
obviously.
we can't win. Stand fast. Never forget.
Breachers.
Never forgive.
Power swords. Alright, I like this, I like this.
And what then, priest? When we reach the tomb,
Cherubim looks like they're having fun.
to you, Captain. Who knows what awaits you in that forsaken place?
Alright, so obviously Necrons. So yeah, let's go all the way back through this and let's take it apart piece by piece and see what we can see. Because that looked dope as hell. Oh, also I want to point out things to people like doing all of this to giving copyright to Games Workshop. This is all pretty much meaningless. If Games Workshop wanted to sue, they can. It's their intellectual property. And that's what makes doing things like this actually scary now, because yeah, they kind of could. Or they can give you a cease and desist, since they've done that to people. Okay, I want to see a couple of these scenes. I don't believe this is Azrael, but it could be. He's got like the lion's helm and everything going on. I do really like that. I love the underglow of the eyes. Like, I'm so used to seeing the entire visor of the eye, like the entire piece of the eye glowing, that just seeing that underglow is actually really cool, because it reminds me of an actual scanner instead of like eye holes. So, because I always imagine, and I know that this isn't the truth of it, but I always imagine that the Dark Angels or the Space Marines themselves don't actually see out of little eye slits. Instead, those are scanners that put an image in their head and feed them all of the information. And because Astartes can process information faster, they can actually read all of it really quickly, understand it, and compensate for the data that's incoming to them. So I always imagine that how they see is actually through a variety of senses instead of just the eye slits. I don't know if that's actually canon or not. I know in some iterations it is, and some it's not. So then gets the scene right here, which is really, 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 really cool. I love the lignotechness on the walls, the binary all over the place. This kind of looks like a giant Mandalorian helmet, I'm not going to lie. But I really, really, really like this because these are probably like honoring falling tech priest Dominuses or just their prayers and everything.
We are here, Tech Priest.
And then we get the actual armor's look and everything, and it's a little less gold than I thought it would be. Like, it's not the bright, vibrant gold, but the armor actually looks very worn. It's not pristine. There's a few animation glitches here and there, but overall, this is actually like fantastic. You can see like it phasing through right here, and it phasing through right here. But overall, again, this is not the final work. So I'm sure they're going to go back over it and make it look pristine because this is incredible. They actually took the helmet that has the sad boy look on it and actually made it look really cool. I like that a lot. These are just regular baby Marines. These are not Primaris from what I can tell yet, or at least he's not. Oh, little known thing, by the way, that I want to point out. Let's skip a couple of frames really quickly. Assuming it'll let me. No, it won't. So the back star that everybody sees on the back of Space Marines, it's actually a 10-pointed star and not an 8-pointed star. The 10 points are for the Emperor themselves for every sigil of the Aquila. So, boom, there you go. A little bit of lore. This little baby thing is adorable. It's just having the time of its life, holding its little speaker. It's just like, yeah, I'm here, I'm doing stuff. But what that actually is it's a Voxcaster of some sort. It's probably the thing that's projecting his voice or their voice. They got a multitude of different sensors here. This is probably an Omnispecs that's built into them. Breathing apparatuses, all sorts of different things. Looks like cybernetic lungs. More than likely, a bionic respiratory system is within this tech priest.
Apologies. Are they truly awakening?
Ooh, we actually get to see his mohawk, so this is not Azrael. Yeah, I don't care.
My senses cannot reach its base around.
They truly awake.
There we go. Oh, it's not a mohawk. These are the wings. Progenitor is what's on the... Oh, no, it's not. Sorry, I misread that. That was my bad. But I do love that each piece of armor actually shows part of the story of Azrael itself, or just this Dark Angel. I still love the eyes. I think this is a really, really cool feature. I do think that they should go with more of a gemstone look for the black itself, like obsidian. But I think that's what they're doing here, and I think it looks fantastic. I, again, love this worn gold look and all the damage along the shield, the crest itself. It's got the 3 points. Actually, that necklace that he is wearing has a bunch of Aquilas on it. That's incredible.
Awakening.
Look at the Necron Tomb World. So, weirdly enough, a lot of Necron Tomb Worlds are actually just their starships just in the ground. And then the planet just kind of cakes them in, or they just vibrate into the planet's surface, find a spot that's actually suitable for them, and then they re-solidify the ship itself. And that's how a Necron Tomb World gets in there, according to Battlefleet Gothic, which I think is incredible because Necrons, how they fly through space, isn't through how they have faster than light travel. Again, this comes from Battlefleet Gothic, is that they vibrate their molecules so they don't weigh anything. That way they can instantaneously travel, but they have to re-solidify in order to do any type of combat. And if you disrupt their atoms, they can actually explode. So typically what they do is when they're in like a hyper space, essentially, when they're vibrating the molecules and moving really fast, when they're doing their faster than light travel, most things just pass through them harmlessly. But the second that they hit one of their jump points where they know that the stream of space is safe for them to do this, that's where they engage in combats and everything. Similar to how Star Wars does their space travel, where they have essentially giant highways that they know that are safe through through space itself, where they know asteroids and microparticles won't just tear apart their ships as they go through light speed. Warhammer 40K does a lot of the same things with some of their starships and everything. So you'll see jump points, and this is why most battles in 40K is like um, most of their starship battles are actually at close range. Isn't because they can't engage at super long ranges, because they can. They can engage from billions of miles apart from each other. That's an exaggeration, not an exact measurement, but they can engage from really, really, really far away. But typically, what winds up happening is they go to these jump points where they know that they can enter warp space safely, kind of like fisting, essentially, because that's what they're doing to the warp. But as they enter warp space, there are certain points that the astronomical beacon can be followed to, and certain points called jump points where they can go in and come out. And that's where typically a lot of their battles take place. And it's also how they can sense ships well out of their range, because they have sensors near the jump points themselves. And typically that's where space stations and everything are kept for planetary protection. In fact, it's why Vigilus is so important, is because of how many jump points it has around it. So it's one of the main hubs of travel in the entire galaxy, well, around that sector anyway, and across across Nihilus. Whew, that's a lot of lore. Similar to the Necrons, the Tau do a very similar thing, but they can't do faster than light traditional travel. So instead, they've started looking into Kroot and Kroot Squat and Demiurge technologies, as well as Imperial technologies for going through the warp. And that's what happened with the Fifth Sphere expansion, which then didn't use Guller fields, got really fucked up. They found out they had a god, and they were like, oh shit. Yes, this is all canon. The Fifth Sphere was considered completely lost, and the Ethereals ordered that all of them from that expansion that come back just be executed. But, it is what it is, I guess. But now they have Guller fields, so they can actually be a intergalactic threat, which I think GW should actually do, and start pushing more with Tau as one of the main enemies, because they're a force of destruction. And I think it's great because they just believe that they're so superior that all they do is bring destruction to everyone that they come in contact with. They're like intelligent orcs, which is terrifying. Sorry about that. But yeah, that's some Necron lore for you. Also, we do see a squad of Marines, and I think these are actually Primaris Marines that we get to see. Is it them? They have the Tech Priest in the middle of them. Looks like a Dominus. We got a Tech Marine, and this Tech Marine is really cool. I really like this Tech Marine's helmet. I do like that he has 4 bionic legs, so he's a quadrupedic. I think they need to fix up this wrist a little bit, but overall, this isn't meant to be stopped frame for frame. You can see all of the different power sources and power systems built onto his back, or their back.
Disrupting our networks. Their typical frequencies pulsing through this world's crest. It is most assuredly an awakening.
The technology is ancient and yet incredible.
I suggest a small...
Like, right here, if you showed me this, they kind of look like a successor chapter to Dark Angels. I don't think these are Primaris Marines. I'm not sure. All of my Primaris Marines have different helmets. They just look like your standard Marines in Mark... actually, they look like they're in Mark 10 armor. Or Mark 8 with the heightened neck guard. I can't remember what it's called.
Ready for such a task. Striking to that target. We move out.
So, funny thing about let's talk about Thunderhawks real quick. So, if we can get it in a good frame, this is actually really good framing. But Thunderhawks. So their intake engine, whoops, I muted it. Their intake engines can do 2 things. 1, they can work in atmospheric, and 2, they can work in interstellar. Void. Sorry, just void. These things can fly all the way up to space, which means they can exceed a speed of 200 like, no, it's 20,000 miles per hour or 200,000 miles per hour. Um, they can go really fucking fast. But typically, when they're in orbit, they are restricted by the air currents and everything. But these engines are capable of putting out output that can fly them at any moment into the stratosphere. So even though it looks like a giant flying brick, this thing is actually aerodynamically designed. And I hate saying that because we went over this thing with a what do they call that? Aeronautic engineer, and they confirmed that this could fly, and it is the silliest thing in the world. So on this thing, we see its 6 Hellstrike missiles. It's got its 2 heavy bolters on the sides, though they don't look particularly there too much. Like, you could definitely see that they're supposed to be there, but they look like they're a little bit funky. You can see the green energy particle weapons of a Necron particle gun. Funny thing about Necron weapons, they're actually vacuum cleaners. So how a Necron weapon works is kind of like a bolt of lightning, where the lightning and the light that you see afterwards, that's just the ionization, I think. But essentially, it's the lightning's already hit, and the light after it is actually just trailed from it. So Necron weapons, what they do is they shoot out an energy that deatomizes things and then pulls all those atoms in and uses it to recharge the weapon so that it can keep firing. It actually takes you apart and then kills you with your own energy. And I think it is one of the coolest weapon designs ever. You can also see the Thunderhawk cannon on top of this thing.
We move out. This is a trap.
Yes.
This is a fight we can't win.
Nah, I'm pretty sure you can win. You have Exterminatus class weapons. It is cool to see a Breacher. Like, I did not expect to see a Breacher Marine. These are extremely rare in 40k and typically reserved to like Sternguard veterans and Vanguard veterans, having the new type of combat shield. But it's a combat shield and bolt pistol. These are common in 30k or Horus Heresy's era, where you would have entire Breacher squads. And they were meant for things like boarding actions, which is really, 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 really cool in my opinion. And they actually got the formation of it very, very well done. And I absolutely love this.
Fast. Never forget. Never forgive.
So now we actually get to see the loading mechanics on a bolt gun, which is a little bit silly, mostly because of what the bolter is. It wasn't designed by an actual gun expert. It was designed by a bunch of sci-fi writers. But it still actually functions as a weapon, and I've shown this before in other videos, but the bolt gun doesn't need a stock, mostly because it has like little to no recoil, but because it actually lines up with their armor and actually fits into their armor itself. If you go back and watch my Sister of Battle video where I'm in full cosplay, I actually show you how it lines right up with the collar and everything of the armor itself. So this is actually fantastic, and I love this. Reloads it. And then, oh my god. Okay, there's a lot that happens right here that we need to go over. One, we got the dude with the freaking power sword that has, like, Zypher's old backpack, and I love that. You have this dude in the back who just looks like he has to poop. But there's a lot to go over here. One, we get to see all the reflection in the eye itself. You get to see those nice scratches along the armor itself, especially as like these 2 frames right here. That's amazing. The attention to detail there is absolutely incredible. The light sourcing is very well done, and I absolutely love it. Then we get to see it more and more as the rotation of the helmet hits. It's so good. Like, you even get to see armor down here, like along this part near this, that has all damage on it. And this is what armor should look like, especially for Space Marines. Though they do get it treated by their slaves daily, their armor would still be beaten up. Dark Angels typically don't have too many chapter serfs, mostly because they turn most of them into mindless servitors to hide their secrets better. So the Dark Angel chapter has billions of servitors that help them. Which is also why they're so connected to the, like, AdMech. But they don't have too many slaves. Oh yeah, every Space Marine chapter uses slaves. In fact, every spaceship is run mostly by slaves. Okay, so we got a twin bolter here. Not exactly a storm bolter. No, it is a storm bolter. But it looks more like the 30k equivalent of the twin bolter. It also has the Corvus hammer, which is really cool. These are reserved for their first company. No, their second company, the Ravenwing. So it's really cool to see him wielding a hammer, which is also a pick. These are power weapons that act kind of similar to thunder hammers in that they release all of their energy when they hit instead of having their energy field permanently activated like a power sword. And what a power sword does compared to what a thunder hammer does is actually terrifying. A power sword, they used to say it cuts atoms, which would cause nuclear explosions, but since then they've corrected it. Essentially, what the power field does is it pushes aside atoms so that it can cut through just about everything except for something with a field around it. This means like force fields and force field generators are still resistant to it, and the weight of the weapon itself helps with that swing. So unlike a lightsaber that has to burn through everything, a power sword would actually pass right through the lightsaber, mostly because of its own mass, and then cut through the unfortunate Jedi or Sith behind that lightsaber, and pretty much cauterize the entire wound as it goes through, which it does make it a little bit weak, but it also means you could never connect those wounds again. Like if you're cut by a power sword, you're pretty much dead. Now that's terrifying. The Thunderhammer is worse. So unlike the sword that pushes, the Thunderhammer itself, when it cracks in, when it does that initial hit, it unleashes its power source into the victim or object or anything that it hits. And when it hits, it explodes inward and pushes apart the atoms itself. It doesn't cause nuclear explosions. They've long since corrected that lore, but it does push them apart. So larger objects like rocks and things like that would just explode. Not only does it release a lot of heat when it does this, but the simple hit itself is more than enough to kill most enemies. This is honestly, if a human got a hold of this type of weapon or power hammer, they can kill an Astartes pretty quickly. They have to hit the Astartes, of course, but if they actually manage to do it, they can kill an Astartes really quickly with Thunderhammer or Power Hammer or the Crozius. Not the Crozius, the Corvus Hammer. There we go. There's a lot of different power weapons in 40k, and all of them do very similar things. Power weapons like the Power Hammer and the Power Pick were initially used for mining and then turned as weapons of war once they started realizing that they didn't have enough bullets to deal with all of the threats they've faced, especially Dark Angels, especially Space Marines in general, I meant to say. So this captain here is wielding a Storm Bolter and Corvus Hammer. I think this is a really, really, really cool combination. I love the checkered patterns on the top of his helmet that we finally get to see. Absolutely incredible. This is very well done. You get to see this older metal effect. You get to see where the power source is actually held within this. And funny enough, a lot of these weapons recharge when they're connected back to the bodies themselves, and they use the power pack, which has a thermonuclear generator in it, essentially. It has a rotating plasma coils in it, but it's essentially nuclear power that is powering the backpacks, and it recharges all of their war gear as long as it's magna grappled to them. Essentially, they have wireless chargers in 40k that is themselves. I absolutely love this, and I think this is a great little addition. I found this out in the War Gear book, of all things. So I want to get a good frame of the crackling energy field of that power sword. That looks insane. I absolutely love this. Look at how good that looks. That is so nice. The good old crackling energy fields. I will always love them, and I love the way that he puts his combat shield up. And this is a combat shield and not a storm shield because it has little rivets for a bolter. It's a breaching shield. It gives a 6+ invulnerable save, which typically isn't that good, but now it gives a +1 armor save. So it's really good. So this dude is walking around with a 2+ save. And we get to see him attack a... That's not a scarab. That actually might be a synaptic tombstalker, which would be really cool because those are Forge World models. So we get to see the other Marines behind him doing their thing. We actually get to see animation that a little bit funky here because this is something that Space Marines armor can't really do. And it's because of limitations with the giant backpack and everything, and you can see that it's mixing into the backpack. But overall, I think this is perfectly fine. I do think that they need to, like, not the people who animated this, obviously. They're doing a fantastic job. This is amazing. But I think Space Marine armor in general needs to have an extra layer of rotation in order for the shoulder pauldron to actually rotate backwards so they can raise their arm like this. Because even here, you can see that it's clipping into the backpack and everything. So we get to see him shooting his Storm Bolter. Looks absolutely incredible. Love the lighting on the eyes. Love the white helmet. The white and green helmet. Yeah, it is a Synaptic Tombstalker. I think. It's either that or a spider. I think it's too big to be a scarab. And we get to see... I love it. I love it so much when they try to make the Tech Marines backpack look useful because they did this in Hammer and Bolter and it's still incredibly silly. But you know what? I love it. It's going to go back a couple of frames just to see this full arm and everything in action. And he lifts it up and I love the fact that it can rotate all of its parts. That's really cool. It's got the, I think that's the inbuilt flamethrower. It might be something different. You got the spotlight on him. This is all good. So there was a lot that just happened there. Let's cut back a little bit. Let's go forward a couple of frames. That might be a spider. That might actually just be scarabs. Cut ahead a few frames. Keep going, keep going. 5 seconds is a very long time. So there it is. That might be a wraith, actually. God, there's so many things that have the scarab body that it could be. I think they're wraiths. Also, power swords versus wraiths is a very funny thing because wraiths have the ability to shake their molecules, which is how they pass through things like ghosts. So technically, melee weapons are really bad against wraiths. But most writers don't remember that, although it does look like you managed to make that work. And I like that. It's like, you can see the energy field like trying to hit, and then it just passes right through them. So I like that quite a bit. Though the wrist looks a little bit janky, but you know what? I still like it. I still like it. And then you go up to do another, or to get right back into a combat stance. See, yep, and then he goes for the other wraith and cuts it down. So the wraith more than likely had to solidify at that moment to try to strike him, and that's when the Space Marine, with a heightened sense of awareness, killed it. And then crushity crush the wraith's head. Blech. Okay.
And what then, priest?
The baby looks like having so much fun.
When we reach the tomb,
Then it is up to you, Captain. Who knows what awaits you in that forsaken place?
Actually, you guys know exactly what's waiting in there. Necrons. Okay, so that is that entire video, and overall I gotta say it's extremely impressive, very well done. It's at a better level than most of GW's animations, which honestly is not hard, given the level of their animation quality. Though I still do like Hammer and Bolter, and I still will say that it's a good series for storytelling. The animation quality is that of an animated comic book, which I think is perfectly fine, but I can see why people don't like it. Overall, I got to give this thing like a solid 9 out of 10. Looks ready to go. Like, if this was a full trailer, I'd be just as impressed as I am now. This is very, very, very well done, and the amount of detail is incredible. This actually reminds me of Death of Hope quite a bit, with the same level of detail, like the insane like armor damage and everything. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. So kind of blown away. Kind of blown away, not gonna lie. They did use the classic Necron color scheme, and I hope they use the new Necron lore because I think it would be very, very cool to have like a discussion between like a space marine who wants to destroy the Necron tomb world and a Necron lord or a cryptech who's like, you can't destroy this. We have been here forever, and this is our land, and you're just an invader. And just having that like dialogue between the two characters as they're fighting would be incredible. Like, you go fuck yourself. No, you go fuck yourself. As they're like connecting blades and everything. Although Necron weapons is actually scarier because how their weapons kind of work, from what I've gathered, is that they do phase their molecules. But since Necrons can control time for short bursts, a lot of their weapons, what they do is they know the exact moment of impact and then they phase them through. It's why they're called phase weapons. Go figure. They vibrate their molecules so that they pass through the target and then cut them down. And this is why invulnerable saves typically don't work against them. And Necrons also swing their weapons slow enough that force fields can't react to them. So, okay. So when they swing their weapons incredibly fast to us, but to them, since they can augment time, it's very slow. And the force field is, as it's reacting to where the blade would go, it can actually bypass that and kill the Astartes, Sister, Inquisitor, anything that's unfortunate enough to get hit by a Satan phase blade. And that's why the Deathwatch, whenever they get the chance, will steal Satan phase blades and give them to the hierarchy of their Inquisition, so that way they can be given to the Ordo Assassinorum, so that they can make the Satan phase blade weapon for the assassins, which is older lore, and newer lore says that it's definitely not stolen technology, but it is. They're stolen weapons from Necrons that the assassins typically use for their blades. And that's why their blades used to be able to ignore force fields. Whew. There is a lot of lore, and I missed a lot, and I might have misspoken a few times, and if I did, just calmly and politely comment down below. Will you do that? No, I'll get a whole bunch of, well, actually, I saw this one YouTuber who said this, and I'm gonna insinuate they're right. Sorry, I had to. This was an incredibly well done video, and I am absolutely blown away. You did an incredible job. 10 out of 10. I can't wait to see the full thing. It was incredible. All right, everyone, tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. I will link this video in the video description. There we go. That's the word for that. My brain stopped working momentarily. Tell me your thoughts. As always, I'm Norn Queen Alexis. I love you guys. Bye.